Welcome to CommsOS. This session is called Monitor for Harassment in Microsoft Teams and will be presented by Erica Telly. Over to you, Erica.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the presentation today. My name is Erica Telly, and I'm a Microsoft MVP based out of Seattle, Washington. So this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. So I work during the day as a fast-track compliance subject matter expert, and I help customers deploy features that they've already purchased. And looking at the suite of compliance products, communication compliance, which is what we use to monitor for harassment in Microsoft Teams, is the one that I see customers implementing first. It's a quick, easy win for your organization. And we're going to go through how to get that set up today and answer all your questions. I also want to note that we're going to be monitoring the chat for questions. So please just go ahead and put them in there as we go along, and we'll pause throughout the presentation to get those answered. So just really quick, thank you so much to our sponsors. Please do visit them in our breakout rooms and have a chat with them. So why do we care about workplace harassment? So of course, organizations are facing a broad range of risks from people inside their organization. So this could be employees or consultants or external users. And really, we're looking for things like everything from violating your confidentiality agreement, leaking sensitive data, maybe some regulatory compliance violations, or in the case today, we're going to be really looking at the workplace harassment requirement. So workplace harassment can be anything from bullying to using bad words. You could be threatening people or just a range of kind of not so great language. So we find that the types of organizations that want to monitor for things like workplace harassment is basically everybody. In almost every country, there's laws and regulations that require organizations to at least have some protections and monitoring in place and basically to do their diligence in preventing employees from being harassed or bullied. And so communication compliance is able to help you meet those requirements. We also see this used a lot in the education space because there's definitely laws in every country protecting students from being harassed and bullied. And so these type of more automatic monitoring solutions can really help you quickly find potential problems before they become very serious. So even though we're focused very much on harassment in today's presentation, I just want to mention that you can also use this same set of features and functionality to monitor for things like risks in your organization from maybe data leaks or other types of sensitive information being sent over these communications, or also for regulatory compliance reasons. So in the US, for example, we have a regulation that all financial organizations need to monitor communications of their traders to make sure that there's no insider trading or other kind of funny business going on to game the system. So you can use this solution to manage these types of risks as well. So communication compliance is the name of the solution that we use in order to monitor for these code of conduct or harassment policy violations. It's a pretty new feature available in Microsoft 365. It launched officially in January, but I've already helped, I think, about 10 organizations implement this to where it has replaced other technologies to become their main kind of communication supervision solution. So there's 3 areas that we're going to go through in today's presentation to show you how to use communication compliance for a anti-harassment scenario. So first, we're going to show you how you can use an intelligent customizable playbook that leverages a machine learning model to detect violations across Teams, Exchange, Yammer, and third-party content. Now, most people, I think, are using this for Teams because everybody's implementing it and now implementing protections as we go. And then also, I think it's very important that you look at using these machine learning models. So with things like harassment language or threatening language, it's not just the individual words that you need to look for, right? It's the context of the entire sentence or the sentiment of the sentence. And so it's hard for you to just build a dictionary of keywords and properly monitor for this type of bad language. So these machine learning models leverage the whole sentence and the context when it finds these violations. And so Microsoft's done work to already have that ready for you to use right away. Next, we're going to look at what we do when we find a potential violation. So how do we review that violation, escalate it if necessary, or take other types of actions? And then finally, you need to be able to prove to the auditors, to your internal your internal departments that monitor your policies, or to potentially the lawyers that you did take action on these types of things. And so we'll go through how you can monitor and audit these policies. So just a couple foundational things before we get going. So in addition to Microsoft Teams chats and conversations, you can also use these policies to monitor exchange emails, both individual and group mailboxes, Skype chats if you're still on Skype, but being this is a team conference, hopefully you're considering going to Teams. Newly added, maybe a month ago, we can monitor Yammer, private messages, and group messages, as long as your Yammer network is in native mode, which if you need any help with that, just message me after the presentation. And then you can also use the compliance connectors to monitor third-party data sources. Some common ones that I see are Bloomberg, instant messaging or mail, Twitter, Facebook, etc. And of course, those would be the company accounts of Twitter and Facebook, not personal accounts. Of course, you need to have the correct licensing in order to use this. So each end user that's being monitored needs to have one of the licenses below assigned to them. So it is kind of one of the advanced compliance features. It's not available with an E3, unfortunately, but you can purchase add-on packs like just buy Insider Risk Management instead of having to buy everything in E5. Of course, if you have a government tenant, it would be the G5 licenses, or in education, the A5 and equivalent licenses. So you will need to have one of those assigned to every user that's being monitored by these policies. And then for permissions, by default, global administrators do not have access to these features. I know that throws a lot of people off when they first try to look at this in their demo tenants. So make sure that you assign yourself these correct roles, even if you're just testing it out or clicking around. Make sure you first set these up. And I have in this presentation some additional information about how exactly to click around and configure these permissions. So now let's go through actually how to use communication compliance. So in the slides, I do have step-by-step instructions about how to do this, but it's much more exciting as a live demo. So of course, we're going to do that in today's presentation. Oops. There we go. There's my toolbar. Okay, so first, how do you access it? So if you go to Microsoft 365 Tenant Administration and you go down to the admin centers, the Compliance Center is one of these admin centers. So if you're not the tenant administrator or a tenant admin, you can give other people access to just this admin center, similar to any of the other admin centers like the Microsoft Teams admin center. So if I clicked on that, it would bring me here to the Compliance Center. on the left-hand side, I'm able to see all the solutions that I have access to. So you'll need to give yourself the correct permission before you'll be able to see communication compliance. But once you have, you can go ahead and click on that. So you'll start out in the communication compliance dashboard, where you're able to see an overview of the policies that you have set up, including recent alerts and policy matches, trends and how the items have been resolved, the policies that have the most matches, and then the users that have the most matches. So you can see Grady Archie has been very naughty, and you'll see how offensive his language is being in his emails and Teams chats. Other things that are in the compliance center, or sorry, in the communication compliance area include an overview of alerts across all your policies, a list of all the policies that you have configured. So here you can see, in addition to the offensive or threatening language policy, I also have a policy set up to monitor for regulatory compliance reasons. And then we have our notice templates, which I'll go over a little bit later in the context of where you'll use them. So in order to quickly get started in monitoring for offensive language, we have these playbooks that are already configured with default settings, so you can get started quickly. And yes, they are very useful, and I do have a lot of customers that are just using these default default playbooks for their production policies. So if I wanted to get started quickly with monitoring for offensive language, I just click here, and you can see it's already filled out a lot of the information for me. So it's put in a suggested policy name. You can change that if you'd like. It's decided that it's going to monitor all internal communications across all the different locations. It's going to review 100% of communications that contain offensive language or bad words. But I do need to fill out a few things. So first of all, what user groups I want to supervise. So most of the time people choose all users or all employees here. And then you would set your reviewer. These are the people that would monitor any potential violations of the policy. And then I would just click create policy. And within 24 hours, it's going to start monitoring the communications for this offensive language. So that's pretty easy, but you may be asking yourself what exactly it means to monitor for offensive language. So what is this doing behind the scenes? So inside the Compliance Center, we have these trainable classifiers. The trainable classifiers are, machine learning classifiers. You can build them for your organization, but Microsoft has also provided some ones out of the box that are ready for you to use. So specifically for communication compliance, we have offensive language, targeted harassment, profanity, and threat. Now, this is a bit confusing, but please ignore offensive language and do not use it. That's because when they rolled this out to everybody in the world, they found out that this model wasn't accurate enough and was producing too many false positives. So just pretend like that isn't there and really use these three in order to create your harassment policies. So if you want to learn more about each one, you can click on it. So for example, targeted harassment is going to look for text that's directed at race, ethnicity, religion, etc. Whereas something like profanity is going to look at expressions that would most likely embarrass somebody. And threats is more about physical harm or damaging a person or property or just violent language. And so these three in combination are how what's used in the playbook for harassment and offensive language. So I'm using harassment very broadly to cover those 3 types of inappropriate communication. So let's say that, oh, and let me mention that these work best in English, but they are designed to work in other languages as well. I personally haven't had a customer, a non-English customer, test them out yet, so I can't attest to how accurate non-English communications are caught, if they're caught or not. But for English, people are quite happy with how they work. But let's say that some organizations have their own list of keywords that they want to monitor for. They don't want to use the out-of-the-box ones because they don't trust machine learning yet. They don't know if it'll really meet their requirements. So in that case, we can use that list as well. And I'm going to show you how to do that with a custom policy. So to create a custom policy, I'm going to click on Policies, Create Policy. Here's our playbooks, but we also have the option to create a custom policy. So I'm going to call this, bad language, baby. And then here I can choose the groups to supervise. I'm going to choose all users. I also would have the option here to exclude users and groups as well. And then I would set the reviewers. I'm just going to use the admin account because I'm logged into that. Then you can choose locations to monitor. So some organizations just want to monitor Teams or just want to monitor email. No problem. Just use a custom policy in that case. Here you choose the conditions. So when these conditions are met, it's considered a match against the policy. So for communication direction, so if it's inbound, that means it's a message that's been sent to the user that we chose in this users and reviewers. If it's outbound, it means that the user that you're monitoring sent the communication to somebody else. And then internal means that both the sender and the receiver are on the monitored list. So if, for example, they're sending a message to somebody outside the organization, internal would not monitor that message. So then we would choose our conditions for the policy. As you can see, there's lots of options here for how to configure it. If you want to create a custom policy but still use the classifiers, you certainly can do that. You would use this condition here, and you could then select these 3 models. But I most likely see people creating a custom policy when they have their own keyword dictionary. So in that case, instead of using this condition, you would choose either 2 things. Most of the time, what I see people doing is using contains any of these words, and then they can paste in the list. But if the list is quite large, then this will not work, and you need to create what's called a keyword dictionary. So in that case, it's a little bit more complicated. What you would want to do is actually choose content contains any of these sensitive information types. And what you can actually do is create a sensitive information type that contains a list of keywords, and then you would have it look for those keywords. So to do that, it's very easy. You can just do it through the user interface. We're going to call it our Harrassment Dictionary. Oh, I have to put the description. And then in this case, we would use this dictionary of large keywords, add the dictionary. I don't have one, so I need to create one. And then it's just a matter of either uploading an Excel sheet that contains all of the terms, or you can just paste them as a list. Most of the time it's in a CSV file. So then once you have your dictionary, you would just finalize the sensitive information type and use that to monitor for harassment in the communication compliance policies. Custom policy. So then once you've specified the conditions, I should have opened a new window. That was my mistake. So once you've specified the conditions, you would specify the review percentage. So in the scenario for harassment, we would 99% of the time say that we want to see 100% of messages that match the policy because they contain the bad words or match the machine learning model. And things like the finance regulations, they only need to select a random sample to review. They don't have to review every single email from every single trader in the company. So in that case, you would select a lower percentage, and it's going to select a random sample from the total. So it'll choose a random sample of 14% of the emails to review. But we're going to say we want to see 100%. And then we would just review our custom policy and create it. So that's the two ways to create a policy. And like I said, within 24 hours, it's going to start catching those Teams messages or emails or whatever we decided to monitor. So what does it mean when it catches an email and identifies it as being potentially a violation of our anti-harassment policy? Well, in that case, we're going to click into the policy. And this overview page is always blank for some reason. I don't know why. So I just go straight to the pending items. So here I can see, and I have to say that this is always a fun demo to prep because you have to come up with emails that are appropriate to show live in a demo, but still are caught by the anti-harassment filter. So hopefully this isn't too offensive. But you can see it's going to catch anything that matched the machine learning model. And as we go through, I can either tag the items as questionable, non-compliant, or compliant and add a justification. I see people sometimes using the tags really more when it's questionable or non-compliant. If it's questionable, they might want to bring in another colleague to weigh in on this and help them decide if it's a violation or not. And if it's non-compliant, they want to be able to quickly filter and only see the non-compliant options. Otherwise, what I see people doing is for the ones that are just false negatives, they're either going to mark it here as a false positive, and that's going to give feedback to Microsoft that their machine learning model's not working correctly. Or I see them just resolve the item. And resolving is basically saying, like, I'm done with this and I never want to see it again. No further action is needed. And it'll show up here in the resolve view. These emails are kept for 7 years. So even if the subject deletes the message, once it's been sent, it'll show here in the communication compliance area for 7 years. Now, if it is a violation, you might want to take some further action. So what I can do is look at the user history. If I want, actually, I have more user history on Grady, I believe. Yeah. So I can see, you know, Grady. Well, this is supposed to show you the previous actions, such as when I escalated things or investigated further, or when a violation was found and I sent him a notification, that will usually show up here. The demo gods are not in my favor today. And so I can kind of use that to give myself some context, right? If it's the user's first violation, then maybe you just need to remind them of the company's anti-harassment policy. But if it's their fifth violation, it might be time to fire them, in which case you might want to escalate it to HR and/or the legal department. So let's say that it's Grady's first violation. I can click notify, and I can send him a notice saying, this is your first violation. It's a notice that you violated the code of conduct, and here's the message, and I can send it to that from myself and CC maybe their manager or whoever. And I can do that right from inside the solution. Now, if it is maybe a fifth violation, I can click here to escalate, and I'll be able to choose anybody that's a reviewer on the policy. So I typically would see customers adding somebody from legal or HR as a reviewer on the policy, and I would select them and they would be notified about this escalation. Sometimes further research is needed on the violation. In that case, I can click here to escalate. And what this is going to do is create an advanced eDiscovery case so that I can search for additional emails, maybe that were involved in this, documents, or any additional background that I might want for the investigation. So if I entered the name here, it would pull in any emails that I had selected and automatically add those to the advanced eDiscovery case. So this is a new button today. I actually have not seen this before or heard it on the roadmap, but it's pretty exciting. I guess now we might be able to build a flow to build our own process. I'm just guessing. This was not here this morning when I practiced my demo, so I am pretty dang excited. Other things you can do would be to view the message details. If you want to see the metadata of the email, you can. You could download a copy for either your records or to give to somebody like outside counsel if it was very serious. I could also view the history of the items. So I would be able to see actually any remediation actions or comments from other reviewers. And as you can see, there's a lot of items in this view for me to review. And so if you're doing this in a real life situation, it could get to be a lot. So in that case, you can do things like group by conversation in Microsoft Teams. Let's see, I might have some of those at the bottom here. I could also view things like duplicate items or near duplicates and resolve and review items in bulk. So it's a pretty robust review process, and generally my customers seem to be pretty happy with the functionality. It's very competitive with other types of supervisory review products on the market, and in a lot of cases, my customers have been able to replace other products and no longer pay for those products and just use this solution that they already own. So that's the review process. The last thing that you might want to do is view the audit history from these policies. So in that case, there's two types of audit history. So first is the history of reviews and actions on the individual policies. And the second is an audit trail for any changes to the policies overall. So for example, if you want to view the information for any policy updates or any changes to the policies, you can select your date range there, and it's going to export that information to a CSV file. So we'll let that run for a second. And then if you want to see any review history of an individual policy, you can do that as well. And that's just going to be here where you export the review activities. Just going to go back a ways so I can get a good report here. So first, let's look at the history for any violation or any policy changes. So this is pretty technical looking, and a lot of times the people who care about this audit history are not technical at all. So what I've done in the past is use this as an input for a Power BI dashboard that shows the information in a more user-friendly format, because all the information, is here in CSV format. And so it's, pretty standard to be able to create a dashboard for that. And then the review information is also in this same type of a format where you can see information like what they did. I added a tag, when it happened, etc. So again, I usually will make a Power BI dashboard. Now on the public roadmap, actually coming either in July or August, they are going to have more reports available that are much more beautiful and user-friendly. I've seen a couple of the mock-ups. They're going to be great. And they're more on par with the reports that users are used to seeing in these other competitor tools. So no more creating Power BI dashboards. All right, so just a couple more things in our PowerPoint presentation before we end. So in the PowerPoint, I do have some additional detail when you create the custom policies. For example, when you're choosing the users to supervise, you can't use say distribution lists if you want to monitor Teams channels. You either need to add the Office 365 group or the team itself, which is basically the same thing. A couple other things, you can't use dynamic distribution groups. That would be awesome. All the users you're supervising have to be in Exchange Online, so no hybrid setups, unfortunately. When you're adding your reviewers, you can only add them as individuals right now. You can't add distribution groups or security groups, unfortunately. I think they're going to add some more options to this in the future. So I have this extra information for your reference later, because I think sometimes it's been easier for my customers to understand this in a visualized format rather than trying to digest the help documentation. Yeah, so that's your, fast 35-minute overview of monitoring for harassment and communication compliance. I hope that it gave you just a little bit more insight into how you might be able to use this solution to get a quick win for enforcing your anti-harassment policies in your organization. We are going to have a post-session breakout. I'll go in there right after this and we can communicate via voice. But in the meantime, have there been any questions posted in the chat that I can answer right now?
Thanks for it, Erica. It was a great session. I certainly learned a lot. It was really useful. There haven't been any questions so far. We've got a slightly quiet set of people on this session, but I'll pose one to you myself. So one of the questions that I was interested in is how do you let users know around kind of these monitoring sessions? Like how do you inform and communicate? And is that something that you get asked by your customers in terms of, is it something that's just in an acceptable use policy, or do you use any other kind of tools to let people know that their communications are being monitored?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, honestly, it's going to vary a bit, not only from company to company, but country to country. So in the US, or actually in the customers that I have been working with, it's in the employment contract that you sign when you join the company, that it lets you know that your emails may be monitored. But for customers like in Germany, for example, there's some additional requirements from the government about notifying users. So in that case, they need to actually acknowledge the policy. It's just not enough to send them an email. So we've been using Flow and Power Automate to manage that solution and make sure that we're getting everybody's kind of opt-in, if you will, for the monitoring.
Understood. And do you think that that monitoring, I think people kind of expect their email to be monitored, but I wondered if do you see a difference between people using chat in Teams? Are you more likely to pick up violations around some of these policies in Teams chat than maybe some of the other workloads?
Yeah, actually, in Teams especially, we find people are a lot more casual. And so we do get some false positives where there clearly it's a joke. It's not meant to be malicious. And we do see that a lot more in Teams than in email.
And how about kind of monitoring like GIFs and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't monitor GIFs or emojis yet using this. And also, they won't show up in an eDiscovery search either. Like if you search for a word and it happens to have a GIF in the conversation, like that'll show up in the conversation view of either communication compliance or eDiscovery. But you can't search just on a GIF or a face. But at the same time, there isn't any solution on the market that can search those things either. So I know it's a common request, and I think it's something that they're looking at, but it's just technically difficult.
Yeah, I think it's just an interesting thing from a kind of compliance and governance point of view, isn't it? Around the use of GIFs is just, being able to pull them out in context of a conversation, because obviously context is everything in these things, isn't it? Cool.
Yeah,
Derek.
and I do want to say, like, I do have customers that ask that and are quite worried about it until they talk to their legal counsel. And then the legal team says, well, there aren't any precedents yet in legal cases in the court where we're expected to be able to produce that type of information. Because most courts define the legality of this as what's reasonable and prudent, meaning what can an organization actually produce in a cost-effective manner. And so they're not too worried about GIFs and emojis yet.
Derek Knox has asked a question: do users get any automated notification if an email has been flagged, or is it is the notification only done by a reviewer? So do the users get any automated notification if one of their emails or communications has been flagged, or is it just flagged to the reviewer and then the reviewer emails?
Great question. It's only flagged to the reviewer because it might be a false positive, and we don't want to concern people unless there is an actual issue. And then if there is an issue, that's where we can either send them the notification with just a few clicks or take any action that's needed.
Okay, cool. I have another one, which is more around kind of the use of this tool for monitoring, like you said, kind of third party. Could you give us any more information on that?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. So this is an area that Microsoft is investing very, very heavily in right now. So you're going to start hearing a lot more about it. But here in the in the Compliance Center, you can see data connectors. And right now, Microsoft has these that are available to use right away. And then there's more that are coming both from Microsoft, and also they've started to work with other partners to develop these connectors. So like right now, I'm testing the connectors with one of my customers. There's a Slack connector in private preview from one of the partners. There's also one for Bloomberg Mail, which is used very commonly in the financial services industry. Instead of this one's just for the chat functionality. So these will be available both for use throughout all of the compliance solutions. So that includes communication compliance, or if you want to keep a copy of these for retention purposes, you can, or so that they're available to eDiscovery in the same place as all the rest of your Office 365 data. So that's why you'll be hearing more about these soon.
And they're all covered by an E5 license, no additional cost per connector or anything?
The Microsoft built ones are not an additional charge, but there's going to be some available only from third-party partners that are more of these niche products, and those would be an additional charge from the partner.
Perfect. Thank you. That was great. I'll see if there's any further questions that come in from any of our audience. Just give it a couple more minutes. But yeah, it's definitely opened my eyes. It was a whole area that I didn't know existed. Probably because, like you said, I think that bit right at the beginning around not having the role if you're a global administrator means it doesn't appear in the list on the left-hand navigation. So
do we have
really
time for one more little quick tip?
Yeah, of course.
So if you are using a demo tenant and you're trying to test these out for your organization, go to the compliance center. It's going to send you back to the old security and compliance center, but just create a role for yourself called like everything. Oh, I already have it. Let me say everything, and I'll just add a character. And then just go here and add all the roles. And I mean, never do this in production, obviously, but just for your demo tenant. And then add yourself to that group. So this is just when you're testing things out for yourself. This is my tip for that. Rather than trying to muck around with getting the permissions right when you just want to see what's possible. And then as you progress in your pilot and your proof of concept, that's when you want to pay a little more attention to having the right roles in place. But when you're first starting out, just do this.
That is a top tip. Yeah, that's an excellent one. Well done. That'd be really useful, certainly for me, in terms of demoing security and compliance and bits and pieces, because like you say, the permissions are quite nuanced there, aren't there? Lots of different roles.
Yeah, they're very much embracing the role-based access approach, where you should only have the minimum permissions you need to do what you need to do.
Yeah, which makes total sense, except for the fact that you don't know that the functionality is there if you're demoing it. So yeah, that's exactly. Perfect. Great tip. Thank you.
Great.
Pretty sure that's all we've got time for the session. So thanks very much. It was really good. Obviously, everybody who's attending, if you'd like to talk with Erica following the session, you can find her in the breakout area. So please check the Q&A. It's goteams.fans/BRK250. Really appreciate the time you spent with us, Erica. It's been excellent. So thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Cheers. Take care.